Hello and welcome to the Editor and the Alien movie reviews.
I am your co-host, the night editor, Kat Rocha.
And of course, I'm your favorite friend from outer space. Okay. J.Ishiro, author and alien in a human suit, and an author who you should buy books from.
And I would totally buy it if you said you were Alf's cousin.
Oh, fuck you!
What?
No.
You're salty mouthed, kind of lewd, likes eating cat. Come on.
See, look, we had 8 people listening. That sole comment alone lost us 4 fucking people. The mere mention of Alf. Do not speak to me of that alien who's also a crackhead. You know Alf did a shit ton of coke, right?
Yeah.
That almost everything that came out of his mouth was coke inspired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know.
Do not compare me to Alf. Pudgy Muppet fatty that he is.
Well, okay then. So what is your drug of choice then? Alf had crack, and the aliens from Alien Nation liked sour milk. So what do you like?
As if you need to ask. It's right here.
Well, no, our audience doesn't know.
Okay, well, I am drinking in my replica Macross SDF1 Bridge coffee mug, believe it or not.
Official,
right? And I mean, it really does look like the one that Global had on the bridge when he got his coffee served to him. Lots of really, really strong coffee with ice cubes in it. And that's partially because I live in a desert, but it's good that way. Actually, it seems a little stronger when you ice it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's the oils and the acidity.
I suppose when I was younger, the drug of choice probably would have been 3 or 4 melatonins, but...
You said it got you high, right?
No, it didn't get me high. It knocked me out, and I would have these wonderful sleeps, which is rare for me. And I'd have the most incredible, vivid dreams that seemed almost real.
Cool.
But then I found there was a reason for that, and it was probably a good thing that I stopped doing that. But no, it's caffeine. Either I need to be asleep or I need to be awake. So aside from that, tonight we will be reviewing the 2012 movie Dredd,
yes.
Not to be confused with the embarrassing Stallone movie.
Yeah, we are not doing Stallone. No, that is horrible.
Before we get into the fun, though, we do have to unfortunately start on a sad note. No, this wasn't coronavirus, by the way. This is our friend, a very, very respected friend of mine, William duFresne, passed away at age 62 of cancer.
Yes.
And I wish I'd known Bill longer. I wish I'd had more time to work with him and to, collaborate with him at least one more time before we lost him. Years ago, I worked with Bill on the Titanium Rain audio drama, which at this point is my preferred version of it. In a sense, he had his right-hand man, Lance Axt, come talk to me at Comic-Con one year, and he said, have you thought about doing audio dramas? And believe it or not, that had always been a dream. I always did want to do audio dramas, and the bastard has not hired me back.
They've been busy.
I know.
They've been extremely
Lance,
busy. Oh my God.
I don't care what the property is. I would love to write more of them. I loved doing it. But Lance talked to me. I was all gung-ho to do it. Actually, a funny thing is when Lance approached me, I thought he was Reggie Bannister from the Phantasm, because he really did look like Reggie. He does. He looks like Reggie Bannister. And I thought, oh, cool, it's Reggie. And no, this is Lance. But
Lance can do Reggie.
Yes, he can. But Lance got me in touch with Bill, gave me a crash course on how to write an audio drama. I got a friend of mine, Jonathan Sharp, incredibly talented musician of New Mind, Biotech, and a bunch of other projects, who is now a rather successful soundtrack artist. He did the soundtrack for me. But Bill is the one that really made it happen. My script, I was very happy with it. As I said, currently it's my preferred version of Titanium Rain. Bill sat down, got that team of actors together, took all the sounds, edited them together. He let me make a lot of the sound effects, which was completely just, that's not the norm in how this is done. The fact that he let me make my own sound effects and he trusted me to do it was an honor. The fact that he trusted my skill to write a script, although I'd never done it before, was an honor. And it almost won us Audio Drama of the Year. We did get honorable mention. We had it snatched from our hands at the last minute from Neil Gaiman. Thanks, Neil.
Well, what I remember is the fact that he actually invited us to go watch them record, and you know, live while they were recording, you could give Bill.
That was another rarity. He let me, the writer, sit in during the recording sessions. And the thing I saw was that how well he worked with the actors. And watching him work and watching him do what he did was the moment I realized, you know, I think every writer at some point has dreams of being a director or doing films. And seeing what he did with actors just in audio, I realized, no, I'm a writer. I have no business talking to actors. And we had this great system. I had a microphone. I would talk directly to Bill. I would say it as a writer, and he would communicate what the performance was supposed to be in a way that would really elicit the right performance from those actors. And he even pulled me aside, and don't worry, I never broke the rules, but he said, okay, your comments, I understand what you're getting and they're fine, but don't ever say that to the actors. You could completely kill their mood. They might run out of the building crying. They might get incredibly mad at you. That's why that you can only tell them to me. And I remember the comment was there was one actor giving this performance, and it was a scientist character. It was more of a corporate salesman type. But this corporate salesman, he was playing him like a creepy mad scientist, kind of a Roddy McDowall character. I said, Bill, this guy needs to be more of a P.T. Barnum, shyster, talk big salesman. He's trying to sell them on this big words. Loud and boisterous. This guy's coming off as kind of like a creepy Roddy McDowall scientist. And he said, yeah, I understand what you mean, but don't say that to the actor. Don't say that to the actor. And there were a lot of moments like that, but he made it work. And the fact that he let me sit in and have my 2 cents on every phase, the fact that he let me hear essentially the dailies, was above and beyond what anyone could expect for this sort of thing. And it's a shame he's gone. His company, Pocket Universe, has really grown since that time. They've done Lock and Key, The X-Files. Damn it, Lance, let me write The X-Files. Again, I'm just really sorry to see Bill go. It's been mentioned on IMDb that he went. That's when I first became aware of it, sadly. And they're crediting him primarily for his voice work as Bob the Builder, which I guess was his most known public piece of work he's done, voice acting. But if you've listened to an audio drama or a book on tape, you have heard Bill read. He is one of the best.
Actually, just saying that, about 10 years ago, I was in a very dark place of my life, and I started getting into audiobooks to help me feel better, because I didn't have the time to actually sit down and read. And one of the very first audiobooks I ever picked up was Asimov's Caves of Steel, Asimov's Caves of Steel. And I read that book or listened to that book and the 2 subsequent ones at least 3 or 4 times. And then when we went to Portland, Maine for the recording of Titanium Rain, I got to sit in on the actors doing a rehearsal the night before the day of actually recording. And Bill starts doing some voices. I went, holy crap, that's Elijah Bailey. And it like dawned on me, shit, this is the guy I've been listening to, for the last several years. He's the one who's been reading some of my favorite books, and is one of my favorite narrators. And so I told Bill that, and I did have to ask him, how did you get through the third book? I think it's is it the Naked Sun? Or is Naked Sun the second book? I can never remember that. Robots of Dawn. There you go.
Essentially, yeah.
How did you get through Robots of Dawn, where it's like half the book is nothing but sex?
Yeah, Isaac Asimov in the 80s suddenly got really horny.
Extremely horny. And Bill just laughed about it. He goes, it was difficult to keep a straight face. And that was the great thing about Bill, is just, even though it was a job, he never took anything that I heard him, anything that he worked on just as a job. It was always something that he put himself into.
And when we had to, because unfortunately we still had Archaea to make happy, there was all those legal wrangling.
Mm-hmm.
He was patient through every step of the way.
He was.
Even though that was, again, above and beyond anyone should have put up with. So he will be missed. There are definitely a fair number of audiobooks I have that are going to be hard to listen to now.
Yeah.
But in a way, at least we've got them. And if you're interested in hearing a clip of that audio drama that Bill did of Titanium Rain, once the show's over, down in the comment section or in the links, the description has a link to a video that's about 4.5 minutes of the drama, mm-hmm. with some animation I put together for it. And if you want to buy the whole thing, it's also in there. Or just check out Pocket Universe.
Yes.
Anything that his company's done is worth your time.
It is top-notch quality. It is not subpar. And I know there's a lot of subpar audio productions out there. No, nothing from Pocket Universe is below like the most highest quality. So please check them out.
And I hope that there's a parallel universe somewhere in the multiverse where Bill lived on longer and he and I got to finish Titanium Rain in all 3 of its parts. Although the first part is a complete story, so don't worry about it. I write everything to try and be each segment's a complete story that fits together. But I wish that we had been able to do 2 more.
Yeah.
But when you got to do the X-Files, I guess you do the X-Files, right?
Exactly.
So
moving on to Dredd.
Well, one other comment here.
Oh, one more. Yeah, Clownfish and EVS are going right now as at the same time.
Okay. I'm just going to say this right now to everyone listening on the rebroadcast. We purposely scheduled this early because everyone said we'd listen to your show if we did it early, that we come on too damn late. But then we have to compete with fucking Ethan and Clownfish.
Hey, that's...
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I can take being beat out by Clownfish. He's a good show. I'll accept that. I like Clownfish.
But this is apparently a knockdown, drag-out fight between the 2 of them. So
is it?
They said that it's a fight between, right?
Oh, it's just that the 2 of them are on right now.
Oh, they're just on right now.
So I'm competing against...
I'm so used to, there being fights now, so
I'm competing against the 2 biggest names, or 2 of the biggest names right now. I mean, why don't you guys start DMing me or tweeting me and just telling me what the ideal time to do these reviews on the weekend is, and we'll schedule them that way so that we don't have to compete with anybody.
That's the lucky thing with the weekends, is that I don't have to be at work, and unless something comes up, we don't have anything typically. So,
and if we go, and before we go any further, as always, YouTube hates us and has not been notifying the users that we're going live.
It was Kronk who said it, right?
Well, there's numerous people have said it here and in the past, and people have emailed me and said, I'm not getting notifications.
Thank you all for letting us know that you're not getting the notifications. Thank you for checking in and tuning in, even though you haven't been getting the notifications. That means a lot. It really does.
The thing is, we're not even monetized. So why are they screwing with us?
That could
Seriously,
be why
we're
now.
Not even monetized.
That could be why now. There's no incentive for them to support us in any way, shape, or form.
But anyway, if you guys could either tweet the link to this on Twitter or whatever social media you prefer, telling people we're on right now, we'd really appreciate it.
Thank
Since
you.
YouTube won't do it. Anyway, So tonight we are reviewing Dredd.
Dredd.
2012.
Dredd
Not-
2012. Not Judge Dredd. No.
After that disastrous film from Stallone,
Ugh.
which could have been a good film, except Stallone stuck his dick in it.
It had the makings of being an entertaining 90s film, but we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about a much better film with a much better Dredd.
So anyway, in 2012, a much more true version of Dredd was released to mixed opinions. I think by and large, the feeling is that it was a great film now. It's got a cult following. Everybody remembers it fondly. There was definitely like a lot of interesting, like a lot of really good films in the last 10 years. If it's smart, different, or challenges the status quo, we've noticed kind of a general attack on it from the press. You know, we saw that with Pacific Rim, with the Monsterverse, with Elysium was another one. There's a bunch of films that, if it really was actually good, it got attacked or trashed.
Well, if it's
Alita,
yeah. Well, if it's fiction and it encourages you to think. I'm not saying it's required for the viewing, but it encourages you to think. They don't like it.
Yeah.
And you know, nothing against like the Marvel films. There are several of them that I really enjoyed, but almost all of them you can turn your brain off on and you'd be just fine.
Well, I've noticed that most of the news outlets that are owned or bought off by Disney seem to be very adversarial to competitors.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get real reviews.
Talking
Anyway,
about Alita.
but no, about all these.
Yeah.
The Monsterverse as well.
Yeah, that one.
Pacific Rim.
Oh, we can't go down that rabbit hole. We will go down a bad rabbit hole.
And it's been proven they are doing that.
I know.
So anyway, Dredd 2012 is a very different take on the setting. The Stallone film presented a wacky, very colorful future, and it did very much embody more of the old 1970s Dredd in many ways, but it forgot the grittiness. And it was really goofy.
Well,
this one really is more of the post-1970s, when it grew up with its audience, when it really started to become kind of a cyberpunk setting. The city's a lot grittier. The judges are a lot more ruthless. And one thing I'd like to say is that apparently this is far closer to what John Wagner had wanted originally for the book. Specifically, he always hated the outfit that Dredd was put in. He thought that it was too garish and like a
comic booky.
Actually, he said he looked like a disco pirate. And that this kind of cop in a war zone outfit is far closer to what he had wanted the judges wearing. Mm-hmm. Or as he always put it, he thought of it being the Frankenstein outfit from Death Race 2000 with riot armor.
Yeah.
Was what he described. And that's really what it looks like in the film.
It is. Real quick, as always, I don't think we need to say it, but spoiler warning, we're going to spoil the film. If you haven't seen it yet, you may want to watch it and then check back in. Yeah, just had to say that real quick. And also, just like with the last two, we're probably going to chat about it, and then we will go back and read over your comments. Yes, if a comment catches our eye, we will read it on air, but wait till the end of the show for us to go over your comments. Thank you.
I would say the only comment I'd say versus the comic and the movie, the 2012 movie, is I think it veered a little too heavily on hard realism. I really feel that there should have been a few more futuristic elements. I mean, you don't really get the sense of what they mean by mutants, because the mutants in the Dredd universe are mutants. I mean, multi-headed creatures, bug faces, tendrils. I mean, the people that are forced to live outside the wall in the cursed earth, we're not talking, someone with just screwed up skin or kind of a more, these are sci-fi mutants.
I was okay with that because it was very obvious that they were establishing the bare bones of this world and exactly what you, a newcomer who's never read Dredd before, needs to know in order to understand what's going on. So they implied the bit about mutants, like with I don't remember the character's name, but the guy that they have as a prisoner. And he's talking about, oh, so you're a mutant, huh? I thought you all had, knobby arms or, maybe forearms. And, so even just a flippant comment like that and what's it called? Graffiti all over the place, talking about, kill mutants or die muties, things like that, does give you the idea that mutants exist. But since it's not important to this specific story,
you don't really see it.
No, you just get the flyover of the cursed earth, which I love.
That was great. That was perfect.
And the great thing about that was you have the flyover the cursed earth, and then it goes over the wall into the city, and it's like, is there any real difference?
That opening was so good.
It was.
Once we get into the actual beats of the story, I've got a lot to say, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the comic versus the film.
Okay.
A bit more. Another thing about the Dredd universe is there should have been robots all over the place.
I agree with that.
And I don't mean fancy, cool robots. I mean municipal trash robots. Just laborers.
Like when you go to one of the blocks, there should have been robots around, like you said, picking up trash, or maybe like selling, what is it called, Grud?
Yeah, or no, not Grud. Oh God, what was there's various foods.
Yeah,
Grud's their version of God.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, yeah. I'm trying to remember what it's recycled food, right?
Yeah. There's Muncie or Munts.
Months?
Yeah, they'll eat that. I mean, there's a lot of weird shit. And the final thing that I really wish they'd had included, but I understand, this is a low-budget film.
I'm sorry, I just saw Kana's Thighs' comment about remind me to rant about something by the end. Okay.
Oh, I'll do that.
Oh, shit.
I'll do that, always. I think
your challenge has been accepted.
I've been toying with trying to get her to sit down and just record maybe 5 or 4 rants over the span of an hour, and I just chop them all up and post them once a week.
Well, it can't be forced. You gotta set me up.
Yeah, I know. But anyway,
you gotta work a girl up first.
Anyway, this could go bad.
We're good.
Not on Mike, it isn't. Yeah, I like perverted jokes.
I thought that was the point.
I like perversity as next as the next man, but I'm not an exhibitionist. Don't want to pull a Mr. Medicare on air.
No. I am now cold and sad.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so the third element that I really wish they had added, but I understand this was a low budget film that didn't look low budget because they used their money effectively.
Well, they filmed in South Africa for one.
No, this was a crash course in how to make a low budget film look like a big budget film.
No, what I mean is the city. The city, since they didn't film in.
Well, we'll get into that. Okay. We'll get into that. But the other thing that I really wish was there is we did not get the sense of a culture on fast forward, a media on overdrive. One of the key things about the Judge Dredd universe is the idea that this is a world where media and pop culture have gone amok. Trends are constantly coming and going, overnight, that people are getting obsessed with these trends overnight, that people will follow these pop trends to the point of killing themselves, that they're being blasted by media at all angles constantly, that the media is insane, and that the TV shows are utterly insane, and that insanity of pop culture and media and celebrity wasn't really present. And I understand that it probably would have cost them quite a bit more money to cover the city with TV screens with various shows blasting at people, or having the screens in the apartments visible to show what the people were watching.
Really, what you're saying is that if they had done it kind of like RoboCop.
Where do you think RoboCop got it?
Exactly. That's why I'm bringing it up. How RoboCop had, the news and the way that the news was being reported and the commercials that were on TV. And
But you also notice how in RoboCop there were screens everywhere.
There were screens everywhere, and you even had like one guy who's holding people hostage, screaming how he wanted the same SUV that he saw on television.
Mm-hmm. That is straight out of Judge Dredd. Although that scene itself was ripped directly from Frank Miller's Dark Knight. Almost scene for scene.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And the media on overload was also heavily influenced by Dark Knight. We should really do a RoboCop episode. I've been wanting to do RoboCop. I consider it a perfect film, and I could get into what its influences were.
Well, we just watched Dredd. We could do RoboCop next as a companion piece, and this way we can compare and contrast.
But so those were the elements that I really wish they could have done more of, but I understand this was a low-budget film that did not look low-budget because they conserved their resources and used them wisely.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure it would have been a little more expensive to put robots in there. And the fact is, what they shot in South Africa and then just CGI'd over top of it, the futuristic city, including all the billboards.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that alone was probably a fair amount of work. Oh, Commissar Kronk, I will tell you what I'll buy that for $1 means when we get to that. I know where that reference is from. No, the original reference.
No, I know.
RoboCop was talking about. Anyway, one more thing. Soundtrack is awesome.
We own it.
That is one of the standout soundtracks ever.
I agree.
And that if you like soundtracks or you like synthwave, buy the Dredd soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
It is worth it.
It is. It very much so is.
And I am so glad they did not go for a conventional score because it really helped establish the setting.
Mm-hmm. What I also really like about it is that there's nothing more jarring than a soundtrack that the pieces don't flow together. And what I like about this is you can get lost in that soundtrack and not know what track you're on, and that's perfectly fine because it all just flows together so beautifully.
So, next step, getting into this film. If you're a writer or a comics creator or a storyteller in general, but this is a film to study.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few films that I would recommend studying for pacing, RoboCop being one of them, but this film is paced perfectly. And the script, I am surprised the script has not gotten the credit it should. And what I mean by that is the pacing and plotting, it constantly is driving you forward. It never lets up, but yet at the same time, every scene achieves multiple things.
Mm-hmm.
There's that subliminal world building and subliminal exposition that is happening that seems natural, but then later becomes important. That is the best kind of world building.
Well, the opening scene is the textbook example of show don't tell. It's all about showing you, the audience, what this world is, who Dredd is, what type of bad guys we're dealing with, what the citizenry is like, and what type of law enforcement we are dealing with. And it all does it in such a way where you think it's just a kick-ass action scene.
Yeah, it explains a shit ton of exposition while showing you a badass car chase.
Yeah.
And then a gunfight.
And drug use.
I mean, come on. You're so caught up in this running gunfight on a freeway. You're not realizing that you have just been given a crash course in the Dredd universe.
Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant. And that's the kind of thing I would strive for in my storytelling, is that kind of subliminal exposition. And they really had to nail it in that first scene because the rest of the film is confined to a block tower.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to see this city. That city had to be real to you. And then it also had to establish what the average day for Dredd was like so that you understood why what was going in that tower, what was going on later, was so important. And it does that beat by beat.
It does.
I mean, Judge Dredd sees somebody driving erratically. He starts following them on the freeway. They start shooting at him.
Well, you also get the fact that these guys are shooting at him. One of them completely mows down a civilian with their truck, and so Dredd is like, "Oh, it's on. He's got to get their asses now." And Dispatch asks him, "Do you want backup?" And Dredd says, "No." Right there, he's a loner. He's a Dirty Harry type. He doesn't want anybody else with him. And so you already have that in your mind within the first 2 minutes of the film when he's saddled with a rookie.
Well, that was another thing that made me very happy about Karl Urban's portrayal versus Stallone. Stallone played Stallone in Judge Dredd, 1989, was it? I don't remember.
Judge Dredd?
The one that Stallone was in.
That was in the 90s.
I just know that I was unfortunate enough to pay money to see that.
My dad took me to see it.
And I felt like, well, it looked cool. This version, Urban portrayed Dredd the way he had always been intended. Judge Dredd was supposed to be a cross between, again, Frankenstein, the Frankenstein character from Death Race 2000, but most importantly, Dirty Harry. He was Harry Callahan from the Dirty Harry films. He was supposed to be essentially Clint Eastwood as the cop who doesn't play by the rules, but by the rules, on steroids. He was supposed to talk like him, and you got that. He was the man with no name in this.
Oh, totally. Though he never said, "How about the rights of that little girl?" I know that was never in the film either. That's a misquote, but he's got that vibe.
Well, yeah, he kind of talks like that. There are definitely more than a few nods to Dirty Harry in that opening shootout.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The hostage situation. Just go ahead and try.
Well, also he's got that Dirty Harry, I'm going to, do it by the book until it's time not to. And then it's, playing fast and loose with the law, where Dredd always does, go by the law, but the law allows him to do a lot.
Yeah, in the Dredd universe, he's judge and executioner, so you don't have to worry about going loose cannon.
No, as long as he declares what he's going to do and what your sentence is, it's perfectly fine.
Right. So once we get past the initial setting, showing the car chase, the arrest, the typical day for Dredd and who Dredd is, we move directly to the other main character, Judge Anderson. In the comic book, or in the comics, Judge Anderson was based on Deborah Harry in her prime. And so she was supposed to have kind of that beautiful pixie look of Deborah Harry and a bit more freewheeling. She was kind of the antithesis of Dredd in every way.
Well, she was fun-loving and playful and sometimes a little obnoxious. But
oh yeah. Now, in this, they did the smart move, and instead of portraying her that way, this is her test as a rookie, her last chance to become a judge, because she had always been borderline, and that was an ongoing thing throughout the series. Was, well, maybe she shouldn't have been a judge. And this adventure shows why she's a judge. Not only that, she's uncertain of herself. She isn't yet ready to question Dredd. She's kind of afraid of him.
And that is another thing, is even in the early teens, we were definitely getting these Mary Sue characters where they were afraid to show women who were vulnerable, who weren't sure of themselves, who weren't indestructible, or like the bestest at everything ever. And so as the story progressed, and I know we'll talk about it more, as she grows as a person, it's so much more meaningful, because you see her at this incredible low point where she has no she's not sure of herself. She's failed multiple times, and she knows it. She knows that this is her absolute last chance to try to become a judge, which is her dream. And she is scared, and just not sure about what she's got to do, because she's been partnered with, of all people, Dredd to judge her,
the most terrifying hard ass on the force.
Yeah, and he's the one who's going to decide her fate.
And the opening scene, when you get her introduction at the Justice Department, and Anderson's being tested, and Judge Dredd and the chief judge are watching her through a two-way mirror.
Did we determine which chief judge that was?
It's a fictional one.
It is a fictional
She's
one.
a merging of two different chief judges.
Okay.
But that's getting deep into lore.
Yeah.
Anyway, that scene, what's brilliant is not only is she being put to the test, showing that she has psychic abilities, in doing so, we get her backstory and everything we need to know about her right then and there, very organically.
Mm-hmm.
She's failed twice. This is her last chance to pass the test to become a judge.
When she was in the academy, at best, she did nominally. And the chief judge giving Dredd all this information is not a as you know moment. It's very organic. It's, here's this recruit. This is her background.
And he even says, why are we even testing her? She's a failure.
Yeah. If she failed already, why am I here? They're like, well, she failed by 3 points. It's like 3 points is still a failure.
And then it's like, well, watch what she can do.
Yeah.
And turns out she's an incredibly powerful psychic. That's why they want her. And when they're leaving, right before they go out on the first day of the test, right? First day on the street, the chief judge says, take her out there, throw her in the deep end. And Dredd says, it's all deep end out there.
Yeah.
And
then the very next thing that Dredd says to Anderson is he's going down how many homicides and other mass crimes this city has, and in any given hour, and the judges are only able to answer to 20% of them. And
that on the first week, was it 1/5 of all new judges die?
Yeah.
Newbies die within the first week often.
Yeah.
So you're getting a sense of just how brutal this setting is. And as Dredd's walking her out, Dredd's first lines to Anderson about the assignment is that he not only lays out the rules to her, so we know the rules of the assignment, but it shows how harsh the world is, how hard it is to be a judge, and how much Dredd is devoted to the law and the rules, and how much of a hard ass he is. Then we immediately jump to the villain, Mama taking a bath.
Yes.
And we get a very quick establishment of not just who she is, but the MacGuffin of the plot, slow-mo, the drug that she's producing. I have a feeling you have some stuff to say about Mama.
Well, I love the character.
Who plays her?
Well, not only because Mama is played by Lena Headey, which, for those of you who don't know, it's Cersei from Game of Thrones.
And this character makes Cersei look like a wimp.
Yes.
This character would eat Cersei alive and laugh about it.
I mean, I enjoyed her as Cersei, but when I saw her playing Mama, it's like, okay, you are now officially one of my favorite actresses of all time. Because she so perfectly establishes, just by her sorry, my brain is totally frying, just by her posture, how she delivers her lines, her stance. And this is something that Lena developed herself for this character. In fact, I believe they originally were going to cast this character older, and then they found out that Lena was very interested in her.
Yeah, she wanted to be in it.
Yeah, and so
the Mama from the comic is this old Italian lady.
Yeah, and well, she was a gypsy, wasn't she?
Maybe she was a gypsy. I forget. Yeah, maybe it was a gypsy family.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time since I read those.
No, I just remember gypsy because usually the matriarch of a gypsy clan is called Mama. So.
Well, in the comic, that wasn't Mama; it was Mama.
Oh, Mama. Okay.
Is how they pronounced it.
Okay.
That's why I thought it was Italian.
Oh.
But she was an early villain in the series. Now, and I'm more familiar with the later stuff.
That is another thing. Is I'm glad that they started off with a still a fan favorite, but not a well known.
Yeah, they didn't use the Angel family or the
No.
Dark Judges or
Yeah,
Judge Cal or any of the really famous ones.
no, they went for something else, and I really liked that. But what I liked about Mama is that, you know, she's surrounded herself by all these capable men who are doing her bidding. And again, so often when you have a woman who's running things, she's surrounded herself by capable men doing things for her, and she herself is just sits back and never gets her hands dirty, and quite frankly is totally worthless. No, Mama full on like punches people in the face. She's ruthless.
Cut a kid's eyes out.
Yeah, she cut a kid's eyes out. I mean, you know, you definitely see why she's running the show, and then you get her backstory. And it's a backstory that
montage was genius.
It was genius. It was brilliant.
It was presented as this is her file, and the way they shot it.
Well, it was very dead on, like you're, you know, just looking at either, you know, dream sequences or other people's memories or even recordings. And what her backstory is that she had been a prostitute when she was younger, because they are keeping that she's a little bit older. And her pimp beat the ever-living shit out of her. So she emasculated him while giving him a blowjob.
Well, a lot of this film, but that scene in particular, reminded me of how Guy Ritchie edits his films together and storytelling, but especially that scene. It was almost the stream of consciousness of various little events flowing together, half the things being symbolic, half them being really happening.
Yeah, and you don't really see much either. It's not actually reenactments of things. It's more implying
or memory flashes of other people's thought.
Yeah, and it was done so well because it could have been really trashy, and it wasn't.
Well, again, like I said, it really comes across as something Guy Ritchie would have done, especially early in his career. It has that rapid fire pacing, that stream of consciousness. The scenes just flow together seamlessly, but yet you're constantly getting hit with different images.
Yeah. And also, it was very believable how she was able to rise to power as quickly as she did. You know, through the production, manufacture, and distribution of the slow-mo drug. And, you know, they're talking about how in a very short amount of time, she had wiped out 3 other gangs and had taken over this entire mega block. Which
did you notice up in her lair she had trophies of all the gangs she'd killed?
I did notice that.
And the leather jackets and the helmet and the guns.
And
you see them in the flashback.
You do.
So, I mean, if you're paying it, there were so many little details like that too, of just kind of, again, still subliminal storytelling. A little detail wasn't a little detail. There was a real attention paid to who these people were and their surroundings.
Well, also just the subtlety of, if you're in her gang, you have to get branded. You have to get a tattoo showing that you have allegiance to her. And if you had been part of one of the other gangs, she doesn't want you, even if you were getting a tattoo, to join her clan.
Yeah. And then the repeated symbolism of she lives at the highest floor of the block and keeps hurling people off the top.
What actually the most brutal thing, because it sets the bar for how vicious this woman is she finds out that there are 3 guys within her organization that are spies for other organizations, and you know, spying again on her drug production. And so they say, well, you know, what do you want us to do with them? And you're thinking, okay, you know, torture them, whatever. And she just says very casually, because she's also high as fuck, she says, skin them, drop them over the side. It's like, wait, did I hear correctly? Did she just say skin them? And without even hesitating. Herman drag the guys out. You hear them scream, and later you see their fleshless corpses dropped over the side.
Well, again, they also reestablish, hit them with slow-mo so the fall seems longer. Reestablishing what slow-mo is like.
And this is not a general fall. This isn't like 15 stories or anything. This is half a kilometer.
No, a whole.
Oh, it's a whole kilometer.
It's an entire kilometer fall.
Yeah, an entire kilometer fall that feels like it lasts like forever. And that's brutal. And
when we get into the slow-mo sequences, there's a little fun fact I'll share.
Okay, I'll wait to talk about.
But the other thing I was going to say about this, the editing also, not only did it remind me of Guy Ritchie, it also reminded me of Tetsuya Nakashima, who did World of Kakano and Kamikaze Girls.
Oh.
And I'm kind of wondering if this director was familiar with it. For those of you who have seen World of Kakano, see it. If you haven't seen it, see it. Or Kanako. It was World of Kanako. That's what it was.
We're probably gonna
review that one a little bit later when we get more people listening. That's one everybody needs to see. Anyway, let's see. Let's get down. Oh, it also, that bit about when they throw them down the block. It establishes one. It shows what slow-mo's like, but once again, it shows you another thing about setting. It shows you how tall that tower is.
Yeah.
It makes it very clear from the onset to the viewer, this thing is 100 stories. It's a long 200 stories, a long way up, which is important later. But at the time, it just seems like kind of a little background thing.
Again, showing you without you didn't notice, but your brain did.
Yeah. And keep in mind, this is all in the first act, and it has been rapid fire pacing. It has not slowed down one bit, and yet volumes of backstory and setup information have been communicated very organically.
Well, and I don't know if you were just about to talk about this or not, but when Dredd and Anderson show up at the block, because it's been called into the judges that, 3 fleshless people have just dropped out of the sky in the middle of the quad in this place. And as they're walking into the block, Dredd stops Anderson and points to this vagrant that's sitting in the doorway, and and says, "Okay, rookie assessment." And she immediately on the spot judges this vagrant for being a vagrant, and basically says, "This is what your sentence is going to be if you continue to sit there." And Dredd says, "Don't be there when we get back." And they walk in. But again, it's a subtle explanation of what the world is like, what type of crimes there are. And I think he was going to be punished with like 15 years in an ISO cube or something insane like that for sitting in this doorway with a sign that says, "Will debase myself for money."
Endless Nocturne, yeah, I would say that the foreshadowing this wasn't on the nose, and the exposition wasn't either. It was very organic, especially on the first viewing, when you don't know what's going to happen. So much of this, we're so used to sci-fi films, just, everything in the kitchen sink. Every little detail, oh, yeah, it's okay. That's just another thing to show you it's the future. This, no. After a while, you start realizing all these little details were there for a reason. And there's a lot of little details that you only subliminally pick up the first time around, or the second time you're on, oh, yeah, that happened, didn't it? And I love that. I mean, that's what I try to do in my own writing. And you can do that in prose, by the way. We'll talk about that in a writer's room sometime. Organic exposition. Okay, so we get to Peachtrees, the city block, the block tower where the story takes place. Dredd asks Anderson, "Well, why do you want to be a judge?" Very
real quick. For those of you who may not know, I think we said it before, but I just want to make sure. These block towers, they're not just like really tall apartments. They're full arcologies. There are schools, there's grocery stores, there's movie theaters. I mean, you can live your entire life without leaving one of these towers.
And a lot of people don't in this setting.
Yeah.
And nor would you want to. Nor
would you want to, because outside's not much better.
But Anderson says, "I want to make a difference. I was born and raised in a place in a block tower like this." which I thought, again, set up. Then what happens? There's something that sets the second act in motion.
Well, the gentleman who runs the medic facility informs them that, again, that these guys who are just dropped are probably involved with the Mama clan, and that if Dredd and Anderson want to, investigate it, he tells them where in the building they can go to probably bust some heads and perhaps get some information.
And events transpire. One of Mama's key men gets captured, realizes the judges cannot leave with this guy. We've got to lock this place down.
Yeah.
They seal this is a world where nuclear wars happen. This is after World War III. Every single block tower can be sealed up to survive a nuclear attack. That gets triggered to trap the judges inside. And from then on, it is a gang war where Mama's clan and everyone in the tower who's willing to participate needs to kill the judges or else. And the judges are going to work their way up to the top of that complex and get Mama. Now, what's really interesting about that is usually in a situation like that, we've all seen the Die Hard, hero trapped in a building, got to fight their way to the villain or fight
Die
their way
Hard, but in a building.
Exactly, Die Hard, but in a building.
Not a joke. That was a real pitch.
Oh God, yeah, we're not going there. What's different in this one is you think, okay, they're fucked. Hordes of people come down to get the two judges. The judges kick their ass. Gun just like a machine, just walks through them, gunning them down left and right, different tactics, being able to handle them with ease. And then you suddenly realize, no, there's a reason judges are terrifying and why it's so hard to become a judge.
And one thing I really did like is that though you do see Anderson shooting people, I mean, she's not afraid to pull the trigger, but she definitely is hesitant and unsure of herself, at least at this point in the story, when it comes to killing people. She does it, but she's unsure.
And she was definitely shooken up after she had to execute someone. The gunfight, okay, fine. Adrenaline ramped her up.
Yeah.
Actually having to execute a wounded man, that was what kind of fucked her up.
Yeah.
And she was even required to give the sentence, remember?
Yeah.
And Dredd delivers that very dirty, hairy line that he kept using throughout the film, which was, "What do you say, rookie?"
Yeah.
As the film continues, the stakes escalate down to the fact that once Mama realizes that...
Real quick, I will also say it's that scene where even though Dredd's in the background, the camera is not focused on him. You can tell by the tone in his voice and in his posture that he has already at that point decided that she is not judge material.
Yeah.
That it's going to be up to him to get them out. And I noticed after that point, he's mainly the one who's taking point. He's the one who's doing a lot of the shooting. He's not relying on her as much, to take care of people, in the fight, where beforehand it had been the two of them together.
So the stakes escalate. Once it's clear that these two judges are a serious threat, Mama locks them down on 3 floors, wheels out 3 Gatling guns, and levels the entire...
That entire quadrant of...
to try and kill the two judges, to show how ruthless she is. And you get scene after scene of just bystanders in their apartment getting mowed down, showing she doesn't give a shit.
And it's not just her telling her goons to go, to pull out these Gatling guns. She goes down there with them. And then at one point she takes over one of the Gatlings and does it herself. So she's not above getting her hands dirty.
There's a few other interesting aspects and twists. 4 corrupt judges come in at one point to try and stop Dredd, which they nearly kill him. To again show that these other judges are not to be underestimated. Eventually, Judge Anderson gets taken hostage, delivered to Mama. And I figured before we kind of talk to the ending, because after this point, it starts to become a straight ahead story. Pretty much everything we need to know is established. Really, all that's left at this point is Anderson needs to be tested and prove herself. That's really what we're moving towards after that point. Would you agree?
I would say she has to have her own personal test, and then it's her proving herself to Dredd. And so it's both of those. And
then we'll talk a little bit about why it was really Anderson who had to carry the emotional arc and growth of the story, because Dredd as a person doesn't grow.
Well, that is the thing with even with the comics. It's not until recently in the comics that Dredd even changes, and that's the thing. He is the immovable rock while the world changes.
And we'll get into that at the end. And that's one of the interesting things that, again, if you're a storyteller and a writer, Dredd is a fascinating character to study because he's one of the few characters in which he's interesting because he never changes.
And he has the luxury of not changing. And by luxury, I mean, so many writers do that. Is my character is always the same. It's like, no, your character can't stay the same. If they don't change, they're going to be boring and stagnant.
Right.
Dredd can, because as the world changes.
Well, we'll get into that.
Okay.
Let's get to the end here.
Okay.
And I want you to tell it because we did another podcast about a year ago where you went on this epic rant about why Mama and Anderson were the kind of characters we should be getting more of, and that unlike the strong female protagonists we're getting right now, these two were the real deal, and that this last act really says why. And I want you to tell it.
You want me to tell it? Okay.
Oh, I can't do it justice. Plus, you might actually give them that rant they want.
I was about to say, is this the setup to give me that?
Yeah, this is a setup to get you start yelling.
Okay, well, okay. So, to yell?
Oh, I figured that you might get angry at this point because they did this film so well and they didn't get the recognition, but yet we're having Ray and what is it, Mikey Spock and all this other shit. Yeah, see, now you're getting pissed. Yeah, I can already see your teeth clenching.
Okay.
Her fist balled up for a second there.
I'm sure all of you are very well aware of my absolute loathing of using rape, or so-and-so was raped and that's their reason why they do things. I hate that. I hate it with a passion. And for me personally, it's one of those just don't do it things. If you're writing your characters, if their only motivation for anything is, well, they were raped, or somebody tried to rape them, or somebody looked at them the wrong way and now they're pissed at the world, just don't do it. Dredd is the exception to the rule because, as I said, Mama was a prostitute, and so often you see those stories of it's like, oh, she was a prostitute, but nobody thought anything of her because, she was a prostitute and she was selling her body, so no one cared when she was raped. People, oh God, I can't stand that shit. And so the fact that Mama, found out that her pimp was going to, get rid of her because she was getting older, and so he was, mistreating her and wanted one last fling before he basically threw her out into the street, and she emasculated him. And that's another thing. I hate stories where the woman gets her revenge by emasculating the man. That is so boring. It's been done to death 1,000,001 times. Think of something else that's much more creative.
Except when they had Mama do it.
Yeah.
She got off on it.
Well, yeah, she got off on it, and
she was a psychopath.
Well, it wasn't for revenge. it was very obviously, the way they describe it and just the montage of images that you're giving, she wasn't doing it for revenge. She was doing it to show, I'm better than you, jackass. And then she takes over his gang. And it worked because, again, it's established very early on that this woman is ruthless. She doesn't just have a bunch of capable men doing things for her. No, she's very capable herself. She's one of those leaders who surrounds themselves with capable people so that they don't have to do it themselves anymore because they've earned that right. And that's why Mama is awesome. And then going back to Anderson, there are scenes with Anderson and the guy that they've got as a prisoner, and he is purposely thinking naughty, awful, disgusting thoughts at her once he finds out that she's a psychic in order to throw her off her game. And it does throw her off her game because at that point in time, she's still unsure of herself. She doesn't, you can tell she's questioning why she's even there in the first place. And so to have this person, throwing these awful thoughts at her, it is unseating her, and she does lose it. She does punch him for it, which in other comics, that's what the strong, capable female is supposed to do. She's supposed to punch him when he's thinking these nasty thoughts about her. But in this, it's showing, no, that's a moment of weakness with her, which is brilliant, because when later she's put into a room with him and it's just the two of them, and he's been told he can't rape her. They make it very clear. They usually would have raped her and done all sorts of horrible, nasty things to her. And considering they flayed 3 men earlier, that gives you an idea. He says, I would have loved to have actually lived out some of those thoughts that I had earlier with you. And it's at that point where she is tested, because she has that turning point of, she needs to get out of that room, and it's this asshole who's there doing it. And she, says incredibly cutting thing, actually one incredibly cutting thing to him, and it cuts him just as deep as he cut her earlier. And that is how, and through, those actions and being able to put him off of his game and him acting irrationally, she's able to kick his ass and kill him and get out of there. And from that point on, she now knows who she is. And that was brilliant. And so often, authors and writers and comics and TV shows, they just degenerate into the, he should have tried to take advantage of her, even though his boss told him not to. And then she overpowers him. It's like, no, fuck that shit. The subtlety of the scene is so much better and so much stronger, and is so much more meaningful to have Anderson come into her own like that. So is that good enough rant? Do you want me to rant more?
Well, and then the turning point.
Okay.
What causes her to change at the very end?
Well, to me, that's the point when she realizes that she is a capable person and that no one can save her but herself. Because before that point, she doesn't, she's still kind of a lost girl. And it's that scene in that room when she realizes, no, I got to do this myself. And to me, there's 2 things that she does that really show that she has no fucks to give anymore. And she realizes that she needs to take care of things herself. One of the judges that's actually corrupt is a female, and you're expecting them to have banter. You're expecting them maybe to hug it out. You're expecting the girl, the other judge to lord it over her.
Female, I won't hurt you.
Yeah, you're expecting all sorts of things, and instead the female judge says, hey, rookie, I'm a friend. And Anderson uses her powers, knows that this person isn't a friend, doesn't say a word, just guns her down and keeps going. Doesn't even give her a second look. So that got applause from me. And then the second was there's this young man who's working for Mama, who he's basically become a slave, and he's constantly being tortured by Mama. She's constantly, scaring the living shit out of him. She pulled out his eyes, and Anderson lets this kid go, and Dredd asks her, "What the fuck are you doing?" And she stares Dredd down and says, "Look, I've already failed the test, so it really doesn't matter, but as long as we're still in here, I can dispense justice." And that's exactly what I did. So, and at that point, Dredd gives her the look of, "Okay, I was wrong. You're now
Judge material.
For making that sort of call and for standing by her call." And so those two things together, I think, really showed her growth and progression in a short amount of time. And it all seemed natural and not forced.
And I don't think we need to get into the ending. We don't have to actually spoil it, do we?
No, we don't.
It's not one of those films where the confronting the villain, Mama, really is not.
That's not really what the film's about. I mean, yes, you need to have a villain, and
that's the end point.
Yeah, but it's not what the film's about. And I think they did that brilliantly.
So I would say we're done with the actual review.
Okay.
And we wanted to get into what makes Dredd work as a character. What's special about Dredd? Usually in storytelling, the critical moment in a character is that moment when they have the option to change or not change, to take the risk or not take the risk, to move on or stay in the state that they're in. And usually you have them change because that's far more interesting. Or if they don't change, that's the end of the story. Yet Dredd has been an unchanging character for multiple decades until recently. And that's fascinating. Now, I have a few theories as to why it works so well. And one of the main reasons is he's the one constant in this setting. Characters, every other character is in a state of flux. The world itself as a character is in a state of flux. The city goes from being a completely crime-riddled nightmare to one point being a war zone where Russians actually invade, to another point where they get hit by nukes and they have nuclear fallout zones around the city, and it just keeps changing. There's another point where the a semi-biblical apocalypse. It's not really biblical, but it sure as hell looked like it. It's a supernatural apocalypse occurs over Mega City. So the city itself is in constant change. It's constantly embattled. The judges themselves are constantly having to reassess who they are. The rate of judges going bad is not so good. So in that regard, even the pop culture, the media on overdrive, the pop culture on overdrive is constantly changing. The one constant is Dredd, and Dredd's the law.
Yeah.
Your turn.
Well, I would also say, as Dredd is the law and the law is the constant. Now, I haven't read as many Dredd stories as you have, but knowing his history and with the few that I have read, I saw it more as the world changes, it tests Dredd, it tests the law, and does the law need to be changed? And for most of his run, Dredd stays constant. He doesn't need to change, but it is that constant struggle and the constant testing of reality, of situations being put against different people.
Will
different
this break
things.
him?
Yeah, will this break him? Especially the short time that he is in the Cursed Earth.
Yeah.
Where the entire section of world is lawless. Will he break? And I do find it interesting.
The moment he finally does, sorta.
Well, is it that he breaks, or is it that he's starting to question
Yeah, he's nearing the end of his life. This is probably one of the few characters who's ever really realistically aged in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly Dredd is reaching the end of his life. There's a real wondering, well, when is he going to die? And a few years ago, he's obviously getting up there in years. He has a very, very life-changing revelation, one that reaches to the very let's just say he finds out he's a clone, which he knew for a while, but then he starts finding out about who he's a clone of and the things this man's done, and he starts finding things that really do shift everything. And you know for a fact that the younger Dredd wouldn't have cared.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was looking forward to him reaching his death, but unfortunately I found out that John Wagner is also suffering from Trump derangement syndrome and has taken a big dump on his greatest creation in order to express his Trump derangement syndrome.
Okay, well.
So I guess he's already dead in a way, sadly.
In spirit, anyway.
Yeah, Dredd's already died, as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. It's over. John fell prey to the cult.
Well, as far as the film Dredd goes, yes, it is mostly about Anderson's journey, how she changes through the course of it. And you would think that, Dredd, again, is the constant. But if you think about it, for him, his change is more on a personal level. He's and it's his view of Anderson. It's that hard, tough as nails. This person shouldn't even be on the streets anyway. He already is going into things not entirely trusting her, not thinking that she would do things out of malice, but just incompetence.
She's not cut out for it.
Yeah, she's not cut out for it. And so he is going to throw everything, including the book, at her he's not forcing her to fail, but he's also not going to help either because he doesn't think that she's cut out for it. And when that moment changes, it is him reassessing things and him having that moment of change. And the juxtaposition of scenes of when he's first talking to the chief judge about Anderson and just absolute disdain for the fact that Anderson is even still in uniform versus at the end where the chief judge comes to the building in person to talk to him about, okay, well, how did Anderson do? And Anderson had given him her shield or the badge, basically, of a judge, and he looks down at it and he says she passes. And it's that personal change for Dredd. So Dredd does have a change in the film. But fundamentally, he's still the same person. Yeah. So watch this movie. If you're a storyteller, study its pacing and how it reveals its setups and exposition. And just the little tiny, it flew by so quickly. I didn't catch it the first few times watching the film. And I love films where I catch new things every time. The chief judge even just very quickly tells Dredd, usually when we have orphans, they're immediately sent to us to be tested to be judges. It flies by so quickly, you don't recognize that she's just said that all the judges are pretty much orphans. They don't have families. Yeah. And it's a minor thing, but it does come into play with Anderson's story arc. So one fun fact about the drug Slow-Mo. Yes. And I was trying to look it up to find the name of the song, and I cannot find it. It's not mentioned anymore on IMDb. Mm. But that wonderful atmospheric ambient sound where it's kind of a voice. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. The music that plays in the background is apparently a 5-second clip
of a Justin Bieber song slowed down by 100.
Yeah.
And that's what you're actually hearing. There it is. Oh, it's 800 times. It's been slowed. It's based on a Justin Bieber song that's been slowed down by
800 times.
Yeah. So apparently, if you slow Justin Bieber down by 800 times, it's pleasant.
Wasn't it? Why was it they used Justin Bieber? Was it just there was a sample part that they liked?
Somebody had tried it, had posted it on the internet and said, hey, I did this. It's cool. And the filmmaker said, you know what? This is perfect.
Cool.
And I was doing a reading on this because I'd always heard Alex Garland, director of 28 Days Later, or what was it? No, Ex Machina and Annihilation had directed it, but yet someone else is credited as the director. Apparently, it's contractual bullshit. The person credited was dropped from the production early. Alex Garland actually directed it and wrote it. So
I did not know that.
And yeah, he did Ex Machina, which is another really good film.
A very good film. Another film that
looks a lot more expensive than it is.
Much more expensive and used enclosed spaces very, very well.
Should we go through the questions?
Yes, we shall.
All right. So I will roll through these and try and find something to read out.
Okay.
And as I do,
yes.
What are your thoughts on Snowflake and Safe Space?
I thought you're going to be reading things.
I'm trying to find the questions first.
I know, but that's going to be a rant all on itself. You're really going to stop my momentum in the middle of things.
You're right. That actually might be a bit dangerous, wouldn't it?
Yes.
All right.
No, I'm sorry.
That goes a little too far.
I don't want to get started because then we won't get to people's comments.
Here's a nice comment.
No, the ending isn't the most important part, but goddamn is it awesome. Karl Urban is god tier in the ending. Yeah.
You know, he is so underrated.
He is incredibly underrated. He is definitely one of my favorite actors, and I also greatly appreciate the fact that he has no ego. It's like the role is what's important, and for Dredd,
he was willing to never take the helmet off.
Yeah. In fact, I want to think there was something in his contract that
when he was on set, he wouldn't take the helmet off.
Yeah, and so many actors have so much ego they won't do that, and the fact is that he stuck to the spirit of the character. How Dredd never removes his helmet. You have that one moment at the very beginning when he's getting dressed and he's all in shadow, and that's it. And it's brilliant. And if he ever removed his helmet, it would have ruined it. So honestly, Dredd dying from TDS is expected. After all, the American comic book heroes have died from it as well. Sadly, yeah.
I would say the actual industry has probably died from it.
Yeah, quite literally now, actually. Yeah. And the comics industry is not immune to the lethal TDS. No, it's not.
Well, I think that's it for comments.
Well,
I would have to say, fire out your last minute comments if you have any. I really do believe we should do RoboCop, if not next, soon. I also think we need to do Dirty Harry.
Oh. And
we should do Dirty Harry.
Well, do you want to do...
Yeah, I'd rather do Dirty Harry next. Okay. I've seen RoboCop so many times. It's not that I dislike it. I've kind of got it memorized. There was a period in my youth when that thing was on a loop in my house.
Really?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
In your house or in your grandparents' house?
No, my house. I'd play it all the time.
Oh, you would play it. Oh, it's one of those ones where you killed the VHS, huh?
Yeah, I got killed. Well, it was copied. Yeah. Lee copied it from the video store because we were crooks.
Hey, if it wasn't recorded from on TV at my house, it was pirated from the video store. And at my dad's house, he got everything off of HBO and on TV. So totally understand.
You know, I realize that
except Batman. He bought Batman.
Everyone keeps complaining about how anti-socialist Trump is, but you know, if you think about it, in a way, they might want to rethink that, because Trump is actually living rent-free in millions of people's heads.
He is. And you know
that's pretty.
And the people who claim to hate him invite him in even more.
Exactly. Yeah, free living, right?
Free living, free room and board.
Okay. Where does "I'll buy that for a..." You read it.
Okay. Hey, where does "I'd buy that for $1" come from?
Okay. Where does "I buy that for $1" come from? Now, I'll give you my original series, or a theory on where the joke came from, and that was I had originally thought that it was a reference to the economy completely sucking in that setting, that $1 wasn't worth anything. That was my guess, and you know, it's a decent guess, but it turns out that's not what it was about at all. It's a reference to a golden age sci-fi story by C.M. Kornbluth called The Marching Morons, which is probably a story most of us could relate to if we know about it.
Marching Morons is amazing.
The Marching Morons, I believe, is what Idiocracy was stolen from.
Mm-hmm.
Marching Morons was published in 1951. C.M. Kornbluth portrayed a future that is very much like Idiocracy, but it had the one element that I always felt that Idiocracy was missing. How the hell does a world like that keep afloat? Where's all the stuff coming from? Why aren't they all dead yet, right? Who's building things? Which is never answered in Idiocracy. You're always wondering, well, at some point they're going to reveal like some sort of cabal that's keeping it this way, or somebody that's keeping it afloat. The beauty of the Marching Morons is, and it's the same concept that all the stupid people breed too much, is that instead there's an intelligent class living among the morons that are constantly working their asses off and are at wit's end to keep these people from destroying the entire planet and causing the entire planet to just collapse in on itself. Mm-hmm. And that it's told from the perspective of these well-meaning scientists and thinkers and just various doers of the world, Tony Starks of the world and such, trying to keep humanity from doing itself in. And they realize we need, and yes, I'll say it, a final solution. And they can't figure out how they're going to do it. And then a used car salesman and a con artist who had been kept in cryostasis by accident for centuries gets defrosted, and they put him up as kind of a puppet leader. And he convinces the entire civilization to build rockets and fly to Venus. And essentially, the rockets go up and then they burn up in the atmosphere. And they commit mass genocide. And it's a comical story, a darkly comical story. But there was this line that all the idiots in the story kept saying. Every moron in the story was, "I'll buy that for a nickel."
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's so. If that were true, I'd buy that for a nickel. And it was kind of this statement that all the morons kept repeated over and over again. And so when Ed Neumeyer wrote RoboCop, he said, I got to use that. I got to use that line. And so that's where "I'll buy that for $1" came from.
Wasn't it we were listening to, I think it was X-1, some of the old X-1s, and we heard them say that. We're like, wait a minute.
Close. There was a very short-lived sci-fi radio serial put on by, I believe, a national public radio station of all places. You would really think that maybe National Public Radio wouldn't want to make an audio drama of a story that's essentially ripping on the product of socialism, but that's what the story was. I guess they didn't realize it.
I don't think they realized
I don't
it.
think they realized that it was ripping on socialism.
No.
And the script was written by J. Michael Straczynski. He'd adapted it. It was an excellent adaptation.
Yeah.
And we were listening to it, and that it was like, wait a minute, I'll buy that for a nickel.
It's like, wait a minute.
So for those of you curious about the Marching Morons, I'm putting a link right now into the chat. To the Wikipedia link, which gives a decent synopsis. And if you go on Amazon, if you have a Kindle, there are plenty of free public domain versions of this story that you can download on Kindle for free, or you can find it online for free. It's gone out of, it's become public domain years ago. So there you go. That is, I'll buy that for a nickel. I'll buy that for $1. That's where that came from. Let's see. Oh, another good question.
What is Dredd's politics? Is he authoritarian?
Yes, he's an absolute authoritarian. He is devoted to the law in every way. He believes that an unbinding, or a unwavering devotion to the law upon everyone, and that's the redeeming quality. That's why Dredd isn't totally a villain, even though he kind of is a villain. Is that he doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if it is the supreme judge who runs all of Mega City or some homeless guy in the street. If they've broken the law, Dredd will not stop to enforce the law upon him. And that's been a kind of a recurring theme over the series, is when people high up in positions of power break the law, they think they're excluded. And then this one guy who's the embodiment of the law holds them to the same standards. So he's kind of the absolute authoritarian in that regard. But then at the same time, he has no desire to lead. He strictly wants to be the person who enforces that law. He doesn't want to make them. He doesn't want to actually get involved in politics or rule. He's the law.
He doesn't want to fly a desk. He wants to get out there and
that's another thing that makes him interesting. And he truly is incorruptible, which is also interesting. Because, if you think about it, a lot, the Soviet Union, what if they had one person there who believed in the Soviet doctrine unwaveringly and would apply it to everyone equally? That's fascinating.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot of dead politicians.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Let's see here.
Somebody talking about firearms. That's becoming common in our chats.
I had the NRA call me today, actually, wanting to do a survey. That was very interesting. Let's see.
Do you want to tell that story?
Oh, okay. The NRA.
Okay, if you're a Democrat, don't take this personally. But if you're a Democrat and you're voting for Joe, I really wonder what's wrong with you.
I wasn't gonna go there.
But
okay. Yeah, the NRA called me to do to ask me a one question survey on the Second Amendment, and they said, what do you think is the biggest threat to our Second Amendment rights today? Is it A, state governments, B, the Congress majority, or C, Joe Biden? And I said, okay, well, let me think about that. Well, considering I just left California and went to Arizona, a state where I have no fears at all about the government here taking away my Second Amendment rights. It's definitely not the first. And Grandpa barely knows where he is, so I'm not worried about Biden. And the woman who was giving the survey just started busting up when I said that. I don't think she was expecting me to say something like that. So that was the survey. Anyway.
Okay, so that's a show. We will do another episode soon. Hope you found this informative and interesting. Tell me if there are other films you'd like us to review. We try to focus not only on the subtext and story elements of a film and why it works, but also what you as a writer or storyteller can gain from studying such a film.
Well, and I also like the idea that we're going to watch Dirty Harry next and then perhaps compare that or relate it back to this week's movie, Dredd.
Well, it's, the number one influence on where Dredd came from was that first Dirty Harry film. And I like the idea of doing Dirty Harry because you watch and it really fits more into the noir genre. It's always written off as this bad cop shooting people film, or written off as a authoritarian fantasy, and it really isn't. When we saw it, we were like, no, this is a really good story. It's about a man. It's not about any. Yeah,
no.
It really is always been written off as just being a dumb gun-toting, gun owner's fantasy, and it really isn't.
Or actually, I always heard it described as basically another Death Wish.
Yeah, I always heard talked about as Death Wish, and Death Wish really is bad.
Death Wish is horrible. I mean,
the new one isn't. The new one was really fun.
I haven't seen the new one.
You need to see the new one.
But I totally get why Dirty Harry is a classic, especially with Garrick playing a Scorpio killer. I mean, it wouldn't. You needed Clint Eastwood and you needed Garrick. You needed both of them.
And it was great to see the actor who played Garrick, I forget his name, as the Scorpio killer.
Yeah.
And, it'd be good also to talk about Dirty Harry, since I have such a working knowledge of not just San Francisco, but of the Zodiac case.
Of the Zodiac case, of San Francisco. You can even talk about how San Francisco changed and how, well, I would say more.
We'll save that for the show.
Yeah.
I Spy Guy says that we should do Macross Plus. I want to do Macross Plus. Actually, I Spy Guy, if you can answer this for me, I've found a few versions of it free on YouTube, but I've found different translations, and some of them seem questionable, and multiple versions of it. I'm more than happy to just buy a Blu-ray and get the definitive version. Can you tell me which one to buy? Do you know which one I should track down and review, please? And is the Macross Plus movie with Mr. White as a voice actor in it?
Oh, really?
Yeah, worth my time? Should we do that one? Just please answer. Let me know. And we'll give you 5 minutes to answer that. Let's see. Oh, somebody's pimping our books. Thank you.
Thank you, Unqualified Comics.
All right. Well, we can. Oh, somebody. There's a fun one.
America and its gun story sounds so weird to the rest of the world.
Yeah, but you hear places like the UK, and you start hearing people in England talk, and you start hearing people in Venezuela talk, and they start saying, "Hold on to your Second Amendment," and you think, "I'm happy it's sounding weird to the rest of the world if they feel that way." And really, maybe it sounds nutty to you guys, but I used to think that maybe people shouldn't have guns until that day happened when my neighborhood went to shit, and I realized, the cops are only going to show up after the people break into the house.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a weirdo at your door, when California's shit policies turn your once nice neighborhood into a slum, and you start getting weirdos at 2 a.m. trying to open your door, you start to think, maybe a firearm isn't that bad next to the bed. And, here in Arizona, where guns are open carry, to be honest with you, it's a hell of a lot safer. The crime here isn't like what it is in California. People are far less eager to get in fights. They're far less confrontational.
Well, especially in the area that we live in.
So I can't really see. California has some of the strictest gun laws in the country, and it has done nothing to curb gun violence. Arizona has some of the most lenient gun laws, and it doesn't have a problem. You think about it.
Well, it's I remember in the 90s, you did not you did not show anything that even remotely looked like road rage for fear that the other person was going to pull a gun on you and get away with it. Specifically, get away with it. What I like here in Arizona is it's not that, it's just everybody is packing, so you make an educated choice on how you are going to conduct yourself.
Well, I have found in general, look, I'll be up front. I'm not a tall person. I am not a tall person. I'm fairly confident in myself and my ability to punch someone. But when you're 5'6" and you've got the 6'4" hoodlum built like a brick, let's face it. Back in California, they'd have no compunction about pushing me around, and there wasn't really fuck all I could do about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I did, and sometimes I did, I was going to take a beating.
Actually, I was at the grocery store talking to this really
Doesn't happen here.
Yeah, I was
does not happen here.
Talking to this really nice, older gentleman, and he said, "So, what gun are you packing?" And he points to my purse, and I said, "Oh, I don't have one yet." He goes, "You don't have a gun yet?" I'm like, "No."
What's at home?
Yeah, well, not that I carry with me.
Yeah.
And he says, "No, you really need to be carrying a gun with you." I'm like, "I do?" He goes, "Yes, you do." I'm like, "But everybody carries guns here." And he goes, "That's why you need to have one." You need to have protection. Everybody does. And I thought that was honestly the sweetest thing in the world, that he was saying that I needed to have one for my own protection. It's like I could have hugged him for that.
I Spy Guy. Okay, you said that the Japanese Blu-ray is the only one to get, and it's $400. I'll get a DVD then, because I know that the DVDs are still available on Amazon. Which one should I get? I just need to know what to order so I can order it and watch it. And I am really itching to watch it and review it, by the way. After I saw some of the episodes on YouTube with their questionable translations, I'm really itching to see the real thing. Kana's thighs, if Arizona's the Wild West, it's very peaceful here.
No, actually, if you think about it, Arizona is the Wild West. I mean, it is. It still retains those roots, that mindset of, the law can't save you. You have
self-sufficiency.
Self-sufficiency. I mean, look at where we are.
Everybody already had emergency supplies here.
Everyone already had emergency supplies. We live in a Mormon town, and the Mormons founded Mesa because they were, running away from persecution, and they needed to, set up some place to defend themselves, and they decided to stay here in Mesa.
Well, Mormons are like ridiculously polite and courteous.
Yeah, they are incredibly polite. And then there's the base down the street.
I gotta kind of feel bad about ripping on them when I was younger, finding out.
I agree. Actually, I feel bad about it too. But
like, okay, I think your religion's crazy as shit, but you guys are really nice. I'm real sorry about that. I'm really sorry, but I was an asshole.
Well, you hear things out of context, and it sounds silly.
Yeah. Well, you meet one insufferable person, and it ruins your view of a lot of people. You're getting raised in a family where you're constantly given the message that if someone's religious, they're a savage.
Yeah.
Let's face it. If you ingrain prejudices on your kids, and hippies ingraining certain religious prejudices, yeah, it's going to stick till they learn better. So I'm not seeing a suggestion on which Macross Plus DVD I should buy. Email it to me, tweet it to me, send it in the comments after the show's off. We can't run the show too much later because we're already pushing our limits on how many hours we get for free. And I got to be honest, to get a paid subscription to StreamYard, it's kind of pricey, and I don't think we have enough quite yet in the subscribe store to do it.
Not yet, no.
If we did, we'd subscribe outright, and we could stream nonstop as long as we wanted. All right. Hey, thank you for joining us. I always love hanging out with you guys.
Think of things you want me to rant about.
And one more time, I really urge you, usually I tell you to go buy my books. This time, I urge you to go take a look at the link in the description about Titanium Rain, the audio drama. Watch the preview. If you like it, go out and buy it. If anything, just to support Bill's company. And even though Bill's gone, all of his employees will at least get that money to help the company keep on going and recover from his loss.
And please check out Pocket Universe. They have
that's what I mean.
Yeah, not only do they have X-Files, they have Lock and Key. They have they've got a ton of great stuff. So please check them out.
Okay, he just told me which one to get.
Okay.
Thanks, I Spy guy. Oh, that's a great one. So anyway, thank you for joining us.
Thank you all
check out
very much.
Check out Pocket Universe. If you like what you hear with Titanium Rain, buy that. It's I think actually Bill's wife still gets money for that. So.
And please join us next week. This looks like it's a good time slot. So
no, it isn't. We have to battle with Ethan and Nerdrotic. We're fucked.
I thought it was just tonight.
I think it's every night. You guys tell us when to go on.
Good night, everybody.